The smoke from Lexington Green drifted across the early morning light like a ghost refusing to vanish. Nathaniel watched from behind a stone wall, heart pounding, as the British regulars swept across the field. The militia had scattered after the first shots, 8 colonists dead, others wounded. The ground felt different now, heavier, as if history itself had soaked into the soil. The British officers barked orders. Soldiers reloaded, their motions sharp and practiced. These were professional troops, disciplined, intimidating, relentless. Nathaniel shivered. How could ordinary farmers stand against that? But even as he asked the question, he saw something extraordinary. Men who had fled across the field gathered again in small groups, not to surrender, but to fight another day. Their eyes were fierce, the grief was real, and so was the resolve. One man knelt over his fallen brother, whispering something too soft to hear. Another stood beside him, touching his musket like he was making a promise. Nathaniel swallowed hard. The war had barely begun, and already the cost was written in blood. He pulled himself back onto his horse. He had more towns to warn, more riders to alert, more lives depending on whether messages reached their destination. His legs trembled as he kicked the mare forward, but he rode, because the morning wasn't over, and neither was the danger. The road to Concord. The path to Concord twisted through meadows and forests still slick with early dew. Birds scattered as Nathaniel galloped past. Smoke from Lexington floated behind him like a dark omen. Every minute mattered. Every second might add another name to the growing list of the fallen. As he rode, he replayed Lexington in his mind, the line of militia, the shouts, the confusion, the single crack of a musket that had changed everything. He didn't know who fired it. He didn't think it mattered anymore, because men were willing to die for a cause, and men were willing to kill to stop it. His mare slowed near a small bridge, exhausted. Nathaniel dismounted, stroking her neck. "Just a little farther," he murmured. "Just hold on." Hoofbeats echoed behind him. He turned sharply. Another rider approached, a militia courier wearing a brown coat stained with sweat and dust. "You from Boston?" the man called. "Yes," Nathaniel answered. "Good. Concord's gathering. British are marching fast. They're burning supplies in Lexington, taking everything they can." Nathaniel stiffened. "Burning?" "Aye, they want to cripple us before the war even starts." The rider leaned closer. "But they won't expect what waits at Concord's North Bridge." "What do you mean?" The man grinned, something wild and bright in his eyes. "You'll see." And then he galloped off. Nathaniel remounted and urged his mare onward, dread and anticipation twisting in his stomach. The muster at Concord. By the time he reached Concord, the entire town was awake and buzzing. Men hurried across the green, muskets slung over shoulders. Women packed provisions in field canteens. Children formed lines to ferry water to the militia. It was chaos, but organized chaos. Nathaniel rode up to a cluster of leaders, militia captains, ministers, and farmers acting like generals. One of them, Colonel James Barrett, looked Nathaniel up and down with surprise. "You're young," he said. "I have a message," Nathaniel replied quickly, handing him the sealed note. Barrett broke the seal, eyes narrowing as he read. "So it is true. They march to take our stores." "Yes, sir." Barrett nodded. "Then we must not let them." More townspeople poured in. Lincoln, Acton, Bedford, Carlisle, Westford. Muskets flashed in the morning sun. Powder horns clanged at men's sides. Some wore hunting shirts. Others wore homespun jackets. Many had no uniform at all. But they came. In numbers. Nathaniel watched as militia companies assembled in rough lines, nearly 400 men strong. The British were professional. The colonists were determined. And determination, Nathaniel realized, was a powerful weapon. A drumbeat rolled over the field. Ellie Mercer's words echoed in his memory. Sometimes revolutions start with just a spark. This morning, the entire countryside felt like a powder keg. The British arrive. The first British troops entered Concord just after sunrise, bayonets gleaming, boots marching in precise formation. Their red coats stood bright against the green countryside. Nathaniel hid behind a stack of barrels near the meeting house, watching as British soldiers spread out. They searched barns, wagons, sheds, storehouses. Each time they uncovered barrels of flour or powder, they smashed them. Every musket they found was broken, every wagon wheel disassembled. A group of soldiers approached Barrett's farm, where the largest stockpile of munitions had been. Nathaniel's breath caught. If they find everything, Concord will be defenseless. But the colonists had been quicker than the British realized. Many supplies had been moved overnight, hidden in fields, buried in orchards, or driven to neighboring towns. For every barrel the British found, 10 more had disappeared. Still, the destruction felt like a violation, as if the soldiers were trying to erase the hope of the entire countryside. Smoke rose from burning supplies. The British were winning, or so they thought. A sudden shout ran through the ranks. "They're forming at North Bridge!" Nathaniel's pulse leaped. It was beginning. The militia companies had taken positions across the Concord River. From his vantage by the road, Nathaniel saw men lining the ridge, hundreds of them, standing shoulder to shoulder. The Acton Company stepped forward. At the front was Captain Isaac Davis, a blacksmith with a steely gaze. "We are not afraid to go," Davis said, raising his musket. Nathaniel felt chills race through him. British troops began forming on the opposite side of the bridge, ready to defend the position. Smoke from Lexington still drifted in the air. A shot cracked, British, though it sounded uncertain. The militia did not fire back. Then another shot. A colonial man cried out, staggering. He fell to his knees. An answering roar rose from the militia. Davis shouted, "Fire!" The volley thundered across the river, a sound that seemed to split the morning in half. British soldiers reeled. Nathaniel watched stunned as redcoats broke formation. Gunfire echoed across the water. Smoke swallowed the bridge. Men shouted, screamed, fell, rose again. The colonists pressed forward, firing with precision, born not from training, but from fury. Minutes later, though it felt like hours, the British lines collapsed. They retreated. For the first time that day, the redcoats ran. Nathaniel's throat tightened. This changes everything. A farmer beside him whispered, "We've driven them back. We've beaten the king's men." A minister standing on the hillside raised his hands. "The Lord has seen our cause." But Nathaniel didn't feel triumph. He felt something heavier. A British soldier lay near the bridge, motionless. He couldn't have been more than 18. Nathaniel knelt beside him, heart aching. He didn't know the soldier's name. He didn't know his story. But he knew one thing. War had taken him. And war would take many more. Nathaniel looked up at the smoke winding into the sky. Liberty had a price, and the payment had only begun. The retreat begins. The British regrouped quickly and began retreating toward Boston, but the militia didn't let them go quietly. From behind stone walls, trees, and fences, colonists fired at the column. British officers struggled to maintain order as musket balls rained from all directions. Nathaniel followed on horseback, keeping to the woods. He watched the running battle unfold, farmers firing from barns, boys loading muskets for their fathers, older men shouting warnings from behind hedges. The red column moved like a wounded serpent, bleeding men at every bend in the road. Smoke drifted across fields. Musket fire never stopped. The British had expected to confiscate weapons. Instead, they found a revolution. Back toward Boston. Hours passed in a blur. Nathaniel rode alongside militia reinforcements as they poured in from the countryside. I recognized some faces, men who I had warned hours earlier. Now they stood with him on the same battlefield. "Carter," someone called. Nathaniel turned. Captain Jameson rode toward him, his coat torn from a bullet graze. "You helped rouse the countryside, didn't you?" "I tried," Nathaniel said. "You did more than try." Jameson pointed toward the smoke-filled horizon. "This, today, wouldn't have happened without boys like you." Nathaniel felt the weight of those words settle on him like armor. Not heavy, protective. He mattered. The militia pushed the British all the way back toward Boston. The regulars barely held the road. By the time they reached Charlestown, the retreat had become a desperate scramble.